It's been a while since I took a look at these raised beds on the edge of my mom's lawn that we set up this winter. I'll link here to the video where it talked about the build of these. These are basically very, very inexpensive, simple hugel mounds, basically raised bed hugel mounds, with a very simple approach to erasing the lawn around the beds. I wanted to talk about how both of those aspects are working. One of the beds is planted out, and we're getting some plans together for planting out the rest of them, and I'm going to share some notes on that too. First thing I want to look at, which I think has been a really nice success so far, but with, a little asterisk, a little caveat, the suppression of the lawn. If you watched the other video, you know that what we did is just basically, with a sled during the winter, dump a very, very deep layer of leaves directly on the lawn, with the idea that we were aware that it wouldn't erase things entirely and we'd have to reapply a bit more leaves, a bit more mulch later on. And you can see some areas where I think we just put a little bit less on, and so some plants are popping through, but we are planning for that. So we've got a cache of leaves over there. It'll be easy enough. I'm not in a rush, but I can do it at my leisure and just basically pin down where we missed some grasses and then go much deeper over these dandelions. The tap-rooted broadleaf perennials tend to be able to push up through mulch a lot better than the grass. But all in all, I'd say the grass is nearly fully erased through here, and just basically beautiful soil down below. So for no tillage, no plastic, no cost, we're able to erase the lawn simply through a deep pile of leaves, and we'll do a little bit more to finish that up, but I would consider that a pretty resounding success for the amount of time and cost, which was 20 minutes and $0. We went through on the north side of every single bed where it's perpetually in shade and inoculated the soil line with wine cap mushrooms. So right at the interface between where the leaves and the soil meet, it's now inoculated with fast decomposing edible mushrooms, which ought to be a really nice treat in the fall. And this should be a very safe space for them to grow, tucked right up against the wood. They should never see direct light there, and over time they can colonize and move out through the rest of this so that ultimately the entire walkway could be a source of food for us in exchange for the removal of the lawn. So then the beds themselves, we haven't really committed much at all to planting these yet. Two of them have some things, which I'll talk about in a moment, but they're really ready, and I can tell they're ready in part because some of the very few perennial weeds that were in the soil when we built them, they're popping up, but then also some little seedlings. So I might just leave these as a little bit of a flag, as a way to sense whether or not the humidity, the moisture in the soil is where it needs to be, that conditions are good for us sowing in seeds or transplanting in. We just had a whole bunch of rain, which was super helpful. If this was a very, very dry spring, I don't know how well these would be performing just yet, but the conditions are what they are, and they're off to a really nice start. Nothing's been watered here, and we've got these deep piles of leaves laying on top of compost. So when we're ready, we'll rogue out the little bit of weeds that are in here. We'll send those to the chickens and then either sow this out or transplant in, better yet. This bed was set in motion with a few different crops. The edges are in perennials for now. The interior is annual because I'm not sure what other perennials I want to put in. But there's a nice perennial arugula on the north side, which stays mild when it's in shade, so it's over there. The good King Henry is on the south side here. Wanted to plant them out with enough numbers that we could actually harvest in a real way. Basically, once they're established, come through and cut an entire plant or two or three for a meal and let them rebound and then harvest another one. There's Korean celery, which is a really nice perennial, very large, mild celery flavored plant. And then a whole bunch of kale in the middle just to fill things out. These were transplanted as bare roots from a clump, and I watered them once but haven't watered again, and they look like they're doing okay. It's another bed with some kale in the middle, and I think once we're ready, we'll do some raking of material off to the side. We'll throw the leaves over the weeds in the walkway to get down to bare soil, and then we'll sow them out. I think the south end here actually gets more shade, so we'll think through things like parsley and cilantro and lettuces, plants that'll appreciate some shade in the summer. Maybe there's Asian greens going on in there, or some kales and collards that can get large but stay sweet. And then the northern side gets a bit more light, and they're taller. So these are the ones we're going to prioritize setting up for my mom. And she just asked me today if I can put in something as a trellis for some beans to grow on. So I think I'm going to rustle up the northern end of this bed and commit it to some bamboo stalks that can act as a trellis for some climbers. I grabbed these out of the woods. We've got bamboo growing in a bunch of different places for a bunch of different reasons. And one of them is that we can just harvest our own trellising material whenever we need it. And there's hundreds of times more material than this that's been cut down this spring. So unlimited trellises and free fencing for trees. It's pretty nice to have this as a resource. We may end up tying these together or putting some bamboos horizontally throughout and weaving or tying that together. But now on the north side of this bed, we can scratch up the soil and push in sweet peas, some cucumbers, maybe tomatoes, and let them climb through this bamboo. And it's nice because then in the summer, there should be enough light to get into the next bed. And if there isn't, we can cut these back a little bit, or we can put some shade appreciating crops on the south side and more sun loving on the north side. But it's a nice way to take some dead material that's been laying in the woods for a bit. We'll see if these root. I don't think they will, but it'll be another interesting experience or experiment to see what happens there. I'd be open to hearing from you folks about some crops that you'd be interested in seeing planted out in these beds to see how they perform. We'll certainly share notes as we fill them out with more plants. Once we get them smoothed out, mulch the walkway again. We'll let more plants pop up before we do that, so we don't have to do it more than 1 or 2 times. But the walkways are nearly completely erased, which is super convenient and easy. The beds feel like they're really moist and fertile and ready to go. It's just a matter of getting some seed and some transplants. So the next video will show these beds fully populated, maybe even the edges and the corners can be planted out so we can see some interesting plants coming from there. Let us know some thoughts and ideas and questions or concerns, and hope you're having a wonderful start to the gardening season wherever you are. Take care.